Looking at the Markets with David Modell. Welcome to Looking at the Markets with David Modell. Ground floor opportunities are a rare and amazing thing, and they can provide healing to patients and wealth to early investors. Today's special guest is not only a sports hero, but a true advocate for patients who big pharma can't or won't help. He is Mr. Daniel Carcillo, the founder and CEO of Wasana Health Holdings, Inc., and we're going to learn about an amazing opportunity today. Mr. Carcillo, welcome to Looking at the Markets, sir.
Thanks for having me, David.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Mr. Carcillo, for anybody who does not yet know who you are, and I imagine a lot of sports fans would by now, but can you share what you did in your previous career as a professional athlete?
Of course, yeah. So I played 12 years professional hockey, 9 in the NHL. Lucky enough to go to the Stanley Cup Finals 4 times with 3 different teams, won twice with the Chicago Blackhawks. I fought over 164 times in the enforcer role, and I was forced into early retirement at the age of 30 in 2015 after my 7th diagnosed concussion. And I've since been on a 8-year journey to recover my brain health and quality of life. And luckily, extremely grateful to have found an alternative therapy in high dose and low dose psilocybin in combination with some plant medicines. And it's really the foundation of why I founded Wasana and why we are going through the drug development pathway with the FDA, with Health Canada and the MHRA in the UK. And why we currently own and operate 3 clinics, creating the clinical framework, if you will, for where these drugs will get delivered through.
Yeah, I really want people to visit wasanahealth.com. I'll put a link in the description below this video. People can click on that, but not until you watch this whole video. You're going to want to hear about this opportunity. First of all, how did big pharma, traditional pharmaceutical companies let you down in terms of healing for yourself and others? And how did that lead to the formation of Wasana Health?
So, yeah, I mean, I went through the medical system for the first 5 years. I spent almost $500,000 of my own money. And I really just wanted to continue to discover and advocate for not only, mental health survivors out there, but especially concussion survivors. And concussion survivors are a bit of a different beast because not only are we dealing with anxiety, depression, some bipolar, addiction issues, a lot of us to manage symptomology. There's a lot of suicidal ideation. The number 1 cause of death after a traumatic brain injury is suicide. On top of all of that, you're dealing with things like slurred speech, headache, head pressure, insomnia, impulse control issues, loss of appetite, memory issues, short-term and long-term. So there are a cascade of symptoms. On a good day, I was dealing with 5. On a really bad day, it was all 10 or 15 of them. And what the medical system has to offer right now is you go into a clinic daily to try to manage these symptoms. Some of them are week-long intensive clinical therapies like neurofeedback and just different exercises, memory tasks that they get you to do. The problem with these therapies is there's no insurance reimbursement. So I was always paying out of pocket, but I would continue to advocate because, without hope, then I believe, survivors turn to other alternatives like I did. And, after I went through, the functional neurology per se, I found out like the neurologist isn't speaking to the psychiatrist who's prescribing me meds that are only increasing my suicidal ideation. The psychiatrist isn't speaking to my psychologist. And so like, there's just such a fragmented framework. And I rarely got asked about, unless I was at the neurologist if I hit my head. So, when the meds weren't working, the clinic stuff stopped to work. I started to manage my symptoms with like changing my diet and self deprivation or float tanks, hyperbaric chamber, mox acupuncture, cranial sacral that decompresses the brain. And then I would just speak about these things to just continue to provide hope, whether they work for me or not. And then 5 years in, I got pretty hopeless myself. And that's when I was introduced to this other alternative, which was, psilocybin. I started to do the research. I'm a very interested person, curious person. And I was always reading like PubMed papers and like what the key was for me to unlock, right? And I truly believe whether it's emotional or physical trauma, that key is neuroplasticity. And that key is waking up the serotonin system and also waking up our right and left brain hemispheres that sometimes get shut down due to emotional or physical trauma. And I went and partook in this ceremony in a decriminalized city. And I woke up the next morning and I describe it as feeling the way I should. And my symptomology started to fall off within a 2-week period, or either lessen in intensity, sometimes all but fade away. And I was pretty amazed. And then I also know that nothing gets fixed in 5 hours. So with this PhD biochemist, we made a regimen to stick to of subperceptual doses of psilocybin that do not make you hallucinate, in combination with CBD. I did that for 6 months, and then I retested my brain and my blood. These anecdotal stories are cool, but I always like to back it up with science for the people that try to refute. And it came back with no abnormalities. My QEEG and my brain just basically telling me that my brain was communicating properly now, and my blood work came back totally clear as well. Then I had a foundation. I had a novel and inventive way of recovering my own brain health. And I thought for sure that this could be the first FDA approved pharmaceutical for traumatic brain injury, because there isn't one that exists for us. And that's essentially how WeSauna was formed.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. It's a shame you had to self-advocate so much, but now you're able to advocate for not just yourself, but for others, and I think that's really impressive. Now, WeSauna Health Holdings is working very diligently to advance psychedelics-based therapies, and this is for depression, anxiety, migraines, and other symptoms. So I noticed that there's a focus in your clinics on psychiatrist-led mental health. How are the psychiatrists in these clinics working with other professionals to help care for the patients?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, David. It's just really an important distinction, right? The way that we're setting up our mental health clinical network is much different than what you see out there today, as far as I'm concerned, which are ketamine mills that are nurses and anesthesiologists essentially giving people IV ketamine and then no psychotherapy. So with the psychiatrist comes advanced diagnostics. The clinics that we have implement pharmacogenetics. There's hormone testing, and it's really a more personalized way to ensure whether you prescribe something like medicine or you prescribe something like FDA approved ketamine right now in our clinics. And with the psychiatrist oversight, you're able to, keep the ketamine in-house, but you're also able to then provide the proper psychotherapy that is associated with these medicines. And these medicines are much more about the experience. And then speaking about that experience and working through with the proper mental health provider or a psychiatrist what was seen, right, or felt in these journeys or ceremonies or infusions right now, and then integrating that into our everyday, right? So really meeting the depression or the anxiety head on, and then moving past it, right? By talking through it. by accessing these emotions or accessing the trauma with less heightened emotional attachment to it. And so it's a really exciting time because the efficacy of what these medicines are showing um, far, far beat the efficacy of any antidepressant, SSRI, tricyclic on the market. And so what we do in our clinics is the personalized medicine approach where the diagnostics tell us what we think the patient will qualify for. We also use a wearable. So if you have an Oura ring or a Whoop bracelet or an Apple Watch, we integrate that into a dashboard that speaks to both the clinician and then the patient through our app. Then we're allowed to track things like sleep, heart rate variability, activity. And if somebody comes into our clinic with a MDD or major depressive diagnosis, and we see the low activity, say 2 weeks after infusion, we see heart rate variability off, they're not achieving the right hours of sleep or REM, then we're able to ping them before they get to a crisis and get them back into the clinic for more treatment. We really believe that's going to be the future of mental health treatment. And then what we're doing in this clinical network is preparing for MDMA for PTSD, which is in phase 3 with the FDA. And once that comes online, we have to have these longer duration clinics set up. And then we also have to influence therapist training, because as I said, the one really crucial piece to this is working with the proper mental health therapist or psychiatrist to ensure the best efficacy for this treatment. And that's attached with hours of psychotherapy.
And if people want to get involved as investors in this ground floor breakthrough opportunity in psychedelics medicine, which is showing so much better results in many cases compared to what Big Pharma is trying to push on the patients. On the U.S. markets, the stock ticker symbol is WSNAF. On the CSE Canadian markets, WESA. See if your broker has that. And also go to wasanahealth.com. I understand that there are not only 2 clinics already established, but also a third one that's almost ready to be up and running. Can you give me the latest on that?
Yeah, so we recently acquired these 2 clinics, and Abid Nazir, our CMO, who has really set an amazing foundation and done over 4,000 ketamine infusion treatments with patients since 2016. We offer insurance remuneration, which I think is another big distinction between us and these other ketamine mills, if you will. And what we've been able to do with some B2B therapist relationship and referral networks, as well as some small media budget and online marketing, we've increased the capacity at both of our current operating clinics. One's in Oak Brook, Illinois, one's overlooking Millennium Park in Chicago, from 50% to 90%. And we've seen our patient visits go up by over 300%. We've got a waiting list now of over 200 people. And so that was really, those 3 things in combination was a trigger to be able to enter into a lease at a new facility, which is 3,000 square feet, which will be our biggest facility to date, and something that I like to coin just like a 2.0, an evolution off of the foundation that Abid has set forth. And that facility will be inclusive of all 4 forms of ketamine, so oral, intramuscular, IV, and intranasal through Spravato, which is covered by insurance. What we're adding in there are some other advanced diagnostics to track outcomes. We're adding in things like neural feedback to be done with ketamine treatments. We're also offering still that classic foundation of psychiatry services and meds, which are obviously insurance remunerated. And then we're adding in TMS, which is 100% reimbursable for depression. And we're also adding in DBT group therapy to be able to create that community-like aspect in this clinic. We'll have a sound therapy and a meditation room And then we're adding in some other holistic tools into this clinic because I believe that we have to take a 360-degree look at how our diet and our sleep are affecting not only the medicines that we're taking, but our quality of life. And that's where the wearable comes in. So we'll be able to track this in and outside of the clinic. And yeah, we're just really excited about the new clinic opening up in Naperville.
Yeah. Now, one thing I look for in companies that I'm considering investing in is there insider ownership and institutional ownership, that kind of thing. So I'm going to put you on the spot for a moment. Do you have some skin in the game, and who else would be the notable shareholders of Wasana Health Holdings?
Yes, I have the most skin in the game. I use my own personal money to patent outside of Wisana, and then Wisana acquired those. I am the largest shareholder by far. I own 22% of the company. Management owns a combined 45% of the company. So I can assure people that we aren't going anywhere. And this was extremely intentional in the way that we set this up. And some of our biggest, most notable shareholders include K2 Investments up in Canada. We have Adrian Moranti, who's really been from day one a huge supporter of us and continues to be. Then we have Cody Chandra, Michael Sobek, Aaron Robb from Ambry Capital, Simeon Schnapper, Michael Gruber, Lindsay Hoover from JLS. So we've got some nice institutional backing, and that's only expanding now with the recent news of our successful pre-IND meeting with the FDA and our drug development program.
Yeah, that's great. And here's something. In January, Wasana announced positive results of an animal study on a novel depression treatment protocol. What can you tell me about this?
Yeah, so that's essentially Sauna 13, which is our drug development program that we're leading with the FDA. We are also currently filing with the MHRA in the UK, and we'll follow that up with the CTA filing in Health Canada. But we just recently on March 11th had a really successful meeting, pre-IND meeting with the FDA about this novel and inventive program. We have two patents, one on migraine, and then one that covers traumatic brain injury and its related symptoms. So a very important distinction. We aren't treating the traumatic brain injury because the FDA does not have any validated animal models, essentially that you can actually prove that the pathology from concussion is actually healed, but my pathology has most definitely been healed. So we'll use it as a secondary endpoint with the FDA. But the patents cover a novel composition of matter. That just means that the form of psilocybin is unchanged, but novel. And the actual CBD that we use is also a different form to allow us freedom to operate and 20 years of exclusivity. Then we have the novel method of use. So that is the way that I administered this to myself and the way that I know others take not only the high dose of psilocybin that'll be done in a clinic, but our at-home therapy dose, which will be self-administered that will live on somebody's counter, not unlike birth control in a lockbox. So that's like a really, really exciting differentiator between Wisana and a lot of the other companies that are just focusing on that in-clinic high dose where you have to hallucinate. The low dose you can take on a daily basis, which is non-hallucinogenic, and over time does the exact same thing that a large dose does. And then we have novel delivery methods. So with those two patents, it protects Sauna 13 moving forward. And the FDA has communicated to us that the way they've communicated to us is that we have a direct pathway forward now to regulatory approval. And it's a really, really big milestone. It's one of the first milestones that you partake in to just really understand if our 375-page briefing booklet was accepted and to get their feedback. And now the rest of the work that's going to happen this year, leading up to getting into human, is we have a few studies to do to satisfy them. We thought we were going to have to do in and around 17, and luckily we have to do 1 to 2 studies only. And we're going to be leveraging the safety profile of psilocybin, as well as the safety profile of CBD that they're extremely comfortable with in it being approved for Epidiolex. And we should be in human by Q4 or Q1 of 2023, generating human data, which is really, really exciting. And our lead indication is traumatic brain injury related major depressive disorder.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of near-term catalysts on the horizon. Any good news, any further good news, I should say, from the FDA could have a really explosive effect for shareholders, early ones, of Wasana Health Holdings. And then finally, just wanted to ask about, speaking of the FDA, what would you say, in summation, is the FDA's overall vibe when it comes to psychedelic medicine today?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really excited. I think that this possible potential of these medicines helping people, turning their lives around, only has benefit to the public. I think that there's a lot of burden that mental health ailments put on society, on people, on families, especially loved ones. So I think they're really open and amenable to changing the status quo, in that I do believe that we're going to get to a point in the future that we can prove that actual underlying causes of these symptoms can be treated. And that is, I know what has happened to me, and I've seen it personally with thousands of people, and I've read it with hundreds of thousands of people, on a lot of these forums, and what it's done for them. So it's a really exciting time. The fact that the largest regulatory body in the world told us, and essentially gave us a green light into getting into human beings, and moving directly into our patient population instead of having to do a phase 1, I think is extremely exciting and telling.
Yeah. When Big Pharma let so many people down, it took a sports hero to step up to the plate. And your vision is coming to fruition right now. Mr. Daniel Carcillo of Wasana Health Holdings, Inc. Again, if people want to get involved, the first step is to click on the link in the description below this video, or just type it in your browser, wasanahealth.com. It's WSNAF on the US markets, on the CSE, Canadian market, WESA. Mr. Carcillo, we're going to have to check back with you very soon to get an update on the next breakthrough, and I think it's going to happen soon. So thank you for visiting us today at Looking at the Markets, sir.
Thanks for having me, David. Really appreciate it, man.